The council chamber stretched 500 meters across, with seats rising in circular tiers like an ancient amphitheater. Representatives from 43 species sat in those seats, their faces showing exhaustion that came from decades of losing a war. Commander Jack stood near the human observation platform, watching the emergency session unfold with careful eyes. Next to him, Ambassador Lisa reviewed data on her tablet, her expression calm despite the chaos around them. High Chancellor rose from his central seat. His reptilian features were drawn tight with stress. The scales on his neck, usually bright green, had faded to a dull gray. He was old now, Jack thought. The war had aged everyone who lived through it. "Thee is gone," announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. 3 billion souls exterminated in 6 hours. The Dominion fleet moved through their system like a plague. They destroyed military targets first, then civilian cities, then the evacuation ships trying to flee. They wanted to send a message. Silence followed his words. Several council members lowered their heads. Others stared at empty air, processing the horror. Jack had seen the reports that morning. The Dominion had been efficient and cruel. They always were. "That makes 17 species," continued. 17 civilizations conquered or destroyed since this war began. 47 years we have fought. 47 years of retreat and defeat. Our fleets are scattered. Our resources are exhausted. And the Dominion grows stronger with every world they take. A delegate stood, her blue skin pale with fear. "We cannot continue. Our people are starving. Our shipyards cannot replace what we lose. We must consider surrender." Several voices rose in protest. Others murmured agreement. The chamber dissolved into argument. Jack watched it all without expression. He had seen this same scene play out dozens of times over the past 5 decades. The council was fracturing. They had been fracturing for years. Slammed his staff against the floor. The sound cut through the noise. "We will not surrender. We cannot. The Dominion does not accept surrender. They accept only submission or extinction. You all know this." "Then what do you propose?" asked the delegate. "We have nothing left to give." Turned slowly, his eyes fixed on the human observation platform. Jack felt the weight of that gaze. So did every other being in the chamber. The room grew quiet again. "Humanity," said, "you have sat in this chamber for 50 years. You have watched and listened and learned. You have offered trade and medicine and technology. But when we ask for your weapons, you refuse. When we beg for your ships, you decline. When we plead for your warriors, you hide behind your diplomatic status." Jack said nothing. Lisa continued reading her tablet. "The galaxy sees you as cowards," continued. His voice grew harder. "You claim to value peace, but you watch billions die and do nothing. You have the resources. We know you do. Your industrial capacity exceeds most council members. Your technology rivals the best we have. Yet you sit here, safe and comfortable, while we bleed and die." Several council members made sounds of agreement. Jack understood their anger. He would have felt the same way in their position. "We have been patient with your neutrality," said. "We respected your choice to remain observers, but the Dominion will not stop. Eventually, they will come for you too, and when that day arrives, we may not be here to help you." Jack felt his communication device vibrate against his wrist. He glanced down briefly. A single coded message appeared on the small screen. He had been waiting for this message for 3 years. He looked at Lisa. She had received the same message. She closed her tablet and stood. The movement caught his attention. He paused his speech. Every eye in the chamber turned toward the human platform. Lisa walked to the speaking floor. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. She wore a simple gray suit, nothing ceremonial or flashy. She carried no notes. When she reached the center of the chamber, she looked up at. "You are correct about many things," Lisa said. Her voice was clear and steady. "We have sat here for 50 years. We have watched. We have learned. We have seen the Dominion destroy world after world. We have seen council fleets fight bravely and lose repeatedly. We have seen good beings die for their principles." "Then help us," said. "We will," Lisa replied. "Humanity is entering this war, effective immediately." The chamber erupted. Voices shouted questions and protests in dozens of languages. Some council members stood. Others leaned forward in their seats, raised his staff for silence, but the noise continued. Lisa raised her hand. Somehow that simple gesture cut through the chaos better than any staff or gavel. The chamber slowly quieted. "Prepare your fleets to stand down in 5 hours," Lisa continued. Prepare your medical ships to receive Dominion prisoners. Prepare your civilian authorities to govern liberated territories. The war will be over by then. For 3 seconds nobody spoke, then laughed. It was a bitter, tired sound. 5 hours, he said. Ambassador, we have been fighting for 47 years. The Dominion controls a third of known space. They have 1,000 capital ships and 10,000 support vessels. They have armies numbering in the billions, and you claim you will defeat them in 5 hours. Yes, Lisa said simply. This is madness, the delegate shouted. Or mockery. Humanity sends 2 representatives to announce their entry into a galactic war and expects us to believe it will end in 5 hours. This is an insult. Other voices joined in agreement. Jack watched council members shake their heads or gesture in frustration. They thought humanity was delusional or arrogant or both. He understood. From their perspective, Lisa's announcement made no sense. They had seen only merchant ships and diplomatic vessels from Earth. They had no idea what humanity had been building in secret. Lisa turned to leave. Jack followed her. Behind them, the council chamber dissolved into shouting again. They walked through the exit corridor without speaking. Security personnel stepped aside to let them pass. Nobody tried to stop them. Nobody asked questions. They just stared. Outside the council building, a human transport shuttle waited. Lisa and Jack climbed aboard. The pilot looked back from the cockpit. Admiral Wright received the same message, the pilot reported. The fleet is moving into position now. Good, Lisa said. She settled into her seat and closed her eyes. It has been a long wait. Jack looked out the shuttle window at the council building growing smaller behind them. Some were up there, and the others were still arguing about humanity's announcement. They were trying to understand what humans could possibly do in 5 hours that 43 species could not do in 47 years. They would learn soon enough. The shuttle broke atmosphere and climbed toward orbit. Space opened around them, black and filled with stars. At first, Jack saw nothing unusual. Then the ships appeared, hundreds of them. They emerged from slip space in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of the system's star. They were human vessels, pulled from secret shipyards and hidden anchorages across human space. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing. For 50 years, they had been building and training and waiting for the right moment. The bridge of the Earth defense ship Valkyrie hummed with controlled energy. Captain Foster stood at the center of the command platform, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, 40 crew members worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. Display screens showed tactical data from every angle. The main displayed empty space ahead, but that would change soon. Slip space transition in 30 seconds, announced Lieutenant Amy from the tactical station. Her fingers moved across her control panel, checking weapon systems one final time. All ships report ready. Nodded. Around the Valkyrie, 300 human warships prepared for the same transition. They had been traveling through slip space for 6 hours, moving from Earth to the outer territories where Dominion forces were gathering for their next assault. Intelligence reported a major enemy fleet in the region. It was time to introduce them to human warfare. All hands battle stations, said calmly. Weapons free upon emergence. Rules of engagement are simple. Any ship that fires on us or attempts to flee is hostile. Anyone who surrenders immediately will be taken prisoner. 10 seconds, Amy said. The ship shuddered slightly, felt the familiar sensation of reality shifting around him. Space twisted, bent, and snapped back into normal geometry. The Valkyrie dropped out of slip space. 300 ships appeared with it, emerging from nothing in a perfect combat formation that stretched across 10,000 kilometers. Contact, Amy reported immediately. Dominion battle group detected. Range 2 million kilometers, counting 240 enemy capital ships plus escorts. They are moving to intercept. Studied the tactical display. The Dominion fleet was large and well-armed. By Council standards, it would be considered a major force. Their ships were built for power, with heavy armor and devastating plasma weapons. They had been designed over decades of warfare against species who fought similar battles. But the Council species had never fought humanity. Admiral Wright sends his regards, the communications officer reported. Task Force Alpha and Bravo are engaging targets in adjacent sectors. Task Force Charlie is ours to command. Acknowledged, said. Amy, target their command ship, the big one in the center of their formation. Range 1.8 million kilometers in closing. They are accelerating toward us. Allowed himself a small smile. The Dominion commander was confident. He saw human ships and assumed they would be easy prey. Every species the Dominion had fought used similar technology and tactics. They expected humanity to be the same. They were wrong. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. Audio only, it is the Dominion commander. Put it through, said. A harsh voice filled the bridge, translated by computer into English. Human vessels, you have entered Dominion space. You will surrender your ships immediately or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply. Glanced at his crew. Several of them were grinning. They had trained for this moment for years. Send a reply, said. Tell them we decline their offer. The communications officer transmitted the message. 30 seconds of silence followed. Then the Dominion fleet opened fire. 240 capital ships launched plasma weapons simultaneously. Thousands of glowing projectiles streaked across the darkness toward the human formation. Incoming fire, Amy reported calmly. Point defense engaging. The human ships responded instantly. Computer-controlled defense systems activated across the entire fleet. Laser turrets tracked incoming plasma rounds with perfect precision. They fired in coordinated bursts, each turret linked to a central targeting network. The plasma rounds began exploding thousands of kilometers away from the human ships, intercepted before they could reach their targets. Watch the tactical display. Of the thousands of plasma rounds fired at his fleet, only 18 made it through the defensive screen. Of those 18, 16 struck human shields and dissipated harmlessly. 2 managed to hit armor plating on a destroyer. The damage was minimal. Point defense efficiency at 99.8%, Amy reported. No significant damage to any vessel. The Dominion fleet had just thrown everything they had at the humans. They had achieved essentially nothing. Knew what the enemy commander must be feeling right now. Confusion, disbelief, fear. Return fire, ordered. Rail cannons only, let them see what we can do. Amy's fingers danced across her controls. Firing solution locked. All ships have target acquisition. Firing now. The Valkyrie shuddered as its main rail cannon fired. The weapon used electromagnetic force to accelerate a solid metal slug to 30% of light speed. The projectile weighed 5 tons. At that velocity, it carried more kinetic energy than most nuclear weapons, and it was completely solid, which meant energy shields designed to stop plasma had no effect on it. The slug covered 1.8 million kilometers in 3 seconds. It struck the Dominion command ship dead center. The enemy vessel's shields flickered and failed instantly. The projectile punched through armor plating like it was paper. It passed completely through the ship, out the other side, and continued into space beyond. Behind it, the command ship split in half. Atmosphere and debris vented from both sections. Secondary explosions rippled along the hull. 300 human ships fired at once. 300 rail cannon slugs crossed space at relativistic speeds. 300 Dominion vessels were hit. The results were catastrophic. Ships were cut in half, holed through their reactor cores, or had their entire bridge sections removed. The Dominion formation dissolved into chaos. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, Amy reported. They are attempting to retreat. Pursue, ordered. Do not let them regroup. Target engines and weapons. We want prisoners if possible, but we will not risk our people to get them. The human fleet accelerated. The ships moved with impossible grace for their size, turning and adjusting course with reaction times no biological pilot could match. Human vessels were heavily automated, with computer systems handling most navigation and combat operations. Crews were there to make strategic decisions and handle emergencies. Everything else was done by machine. The Dominion ships tried to flee. They were slower than the human vessels and less maneuverable. One by one, they were run down and destroyed. Some tried to fight back. Those died faster. A few attempted to surrender, broadcasting distress signals and shutting down their weapons. Ordered those ships disabled and left for recovery teams to collect later. 47 minutes after the battle began, it ended. 240 Dominion capital ships had been reduced to wreckage and escape pods. 0 human ships had been lost. 0 human crew members had been killed. 3 human vessels reported minor damage from lucky hits. That was all. Stood on his bridge and looked at the tactical display. Red icons showing enemy ships had been replaced by gray icons showing debris fields. Blue icons showing human ships remained in perfect formation. Admiral Wright is signaling, the communications officer reported. Task Force Alpha reports complete success. Task Force Bravo reports complete success. We are ordered to proceed to Phase 2. Acknowledged, said. He turned to his navigation officer. Plot a course for the sector. We have supply depots to capture. The officer nodded and began entering coordinates. Around the Valkyrie, the human fleet began organizing itself into smaller groups. They would split up now, hitting multiple targets simultaneously across Dominion space. The enemy would not know where to defend. They would not have time to organize a response. Amy looked up from her station. Captain, we are receiving emergency broadcasts from Dominion channels. They are ordering all their forces to retreat from any area where human ships are detected. Good, said. They are learning. The message is interesting, Amy continued. They are calling us Death Incarnate. Several crew members chuckled at that, understood the Dominion's fear. For 47 years, they had been the dominant military power in this region of space. They had crushed every opponent. They thought themselves invincible. Then humanity arrived and destroyed an entire battle group in less than an hour without losing a single ship. The Dominion's confidence was broken. Their sense of superiority was shattered. They were learning what every bully eventually learns: there is always someone stronger. Contact the Admiral, ordered. Tell him Task Force Charlie is ready for Phase 2. The Dominion wanted a war. We will give them one they will never forget. The communications officer sent the message, sat down in his command chair and studied the tactical display. Phase 1 was complete. 4 more hours remained. Somewhere in Dominion space, their supreme leader was receiving reports of the disaster that had just occurred. He was probably organizing a response, calling in reinforcements, preparing defenses. It would not matter. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this war. They had built weapons and ships and training programs in secret. They had studied every battle the Council had fought. They had learned from every defeat. They had prepared for every scenario. And now they were going to end this war in the most decisive way possible. They were going to show the galaxy what happened when humanity finally decided to fight. The Valkyrie's engines flared brighter. The ship accelerated toward its next target. Behind it, 300 human warships followed in perfect formation. They moved through space like predators, efficient and deadly. The Dominion had wanted to test humanity's resolve. They were about to learn that some tests should Neve Captain Brandon Cole watch the Dominion supply depot grow larger on his. The Earth defense ship Thunderstrike approached slowly, scanning the massive structure with every sensor available. The depot was enormous, stretching 30 kilometers across. It housed weapons, ammunition, fuel, and supplies for a dozen Dominion fleets. Intelligence indicated it was lightly defended, since the Dominion never expected anyone to attack this deep into their territory. Intelligence was correct. Brandon counted only 6 warships guarding the depot, along with some automated defense platforms. Against a Council fleet, those defenses would be adequate. Against Task Force Alpha, they were pointless. Commander Park, what do we have? Brandon asked. Commander Park looked up from her intelligence station. She was young for her rank, only 32, but she had proven herself brilliant at information warfare. The depot stores enough supplies to support Dominion operations for 6 months. Destroying it would cripple their logistics, but if we capture it intact, we can use those supplies to support relief operations for freed worlds. Capture it is, then, Brandon said. He opened a channel to his Marine commander. Lieutenant Shaw, your teams are cleared for boarding operations. I want that depot secured with minimal damage. Understood, Captain, Lieutenant Danny Shaw replied. Marines are ready. Brandon turned to his weapons officer. Take out those defense platforms, leave the warships alone for now, give them a chance to surrender. The Thunderstrike fired precisely. 6 laser beams lanced out, each one targeting an automated defense platform. The platforms exploded silently in the vacuum. The Dominion warships began moving, trying to form a defensive screen. They were too slow. 12 human ships had already surrounded the depot, cutting off any escape. Sending surrender demand, the communications officer reported. No response yet. Brandon waited. He counted to 30 in his head. Then the Dominion ships opened fire. Their plasma weapons struck human shields and accomplished nothing. Brandon sighed. Return fire, he ordered. Disable only, target their engines and weapons. The human ships responded with surgical precision. Rail cannon fire destroyed Dominion engines and weapon systems without penetrating deep enough to kill crew. Within 2 minutes, all 6 enemy warships were drifting helplessly. Escape pods began launching from them. "Boarding teams away," Danny Shaw reported. His voice came through clearly from the Marine assault ship. "We are approaching the depot main docking bay." Brandon watched the tactical display. 50 human Marines in powered armor moved toward the depot. Intelligence suggested 3,000 Dominion soldiers were stationed inside. Under normal circumstances, those odds would be impossible. But human Marines did not face normal circumstances. They wore that amplified their strength 10 times over. They carried weapons that could punch through tank armor, and they were trained for exactly this kind of operation. The Marines breached the docking bay doors and poured inside. Brandon switched his to show camera feeds from the Marine suits. What he saw impressed him, as it always did. Dominion soldiers were big, averaging 8 feet tall. They were bred for combat with thick scales and natural armor. They carried heavy weapons and had decades of combat experience. They outnumbered the humans 60-1. It did not matter. The first Dominion squad to engage the Marines lasted 12 seconds. Human allowed the Marines to move faster than the Dominion soldiers could track. Human weapons hit harder than anything the Dominion had encountered. Human tactics were refined through centuries of warfare on Earth, adapted and improved for space combat. Danny Shaw led his team through the depot corridors like a scalpel cutting through soft tissue. They moved in perfect coordination, covering angles and supporting each other. When Dominion soldiers appeared, the Marines put them down with non-lethal rounds that knocked them unconscious. When Dominion soldiers refused to surrender, lethal force was applied instantly. "Section A secured," Danny reported. "Moving to Section B, resistance is heavy but disorganized. They are not prepared for our tactics." Brandon monitored the operation with pride. His Marines were performing perfectly. More human ships were arriving now, carrying specialized teams to secure supplies and begin inventory. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned. "Captain, I have Admiral Wright," the communications officer said. Brandon acknowledged. The Admiral's face appeared on a secondary screen. "Admiral, Task Force Alpha has secured the primary supply depot. Minimal damage to the structure. Estimated 31 minutes until complete control." "Excellent work, Captain," Wright replied. "Task Force Bravo is engaging enemy fleet elements in the outer rim. Task Force Charlie has liberated their first slave world. We are ahead of schedule." Brandon felt satisfaction at that news. 3 task forces operating simultaneously across 40 light-years. The Dominion had to be reeling from the assault. They could not defend everywhere at once. "Begin Phase 3 when ready," the Admiral continued. "We have identified Dominion military command centers. I am sending you target coordinates now." Brandon's tactical display updated with new information. "Acknowledged, Admiral. We will move as soon as the depot is secure." The Admiral cut the connection. Brandon looked at Park. "Commander, I need you to hack into the depot computer systems. I want every piece of information they have. Troop deployments, fleet locations, command codes, everything." Smiled. "Already working on it, Captain. Their security is laughable compared to ours. I should have full access within 10 minutes. Brandon nodded. That was another advantage humanity possessed. Their computer systems were generations ahead of anything the Council or Dominion used. Human hackers could break into alien systems almost at will. It gave them enormous intelligence advantages. He watched his Marines continue their advance. Section B fell in 18 minutes. Section C took 22. The Dominion soldiers were brave, he had to give them that. They fought hard even when they knew they were losing. But bravery alone could not overcome the technological and tactical gap between them and human forces. "Captain, getting interesting intel here," said. Her voice carried excitement. "The depot computers have real-time communication logs with Dominion High Command. They are in complete panic. Reports are flooding in from across their territory. They have lost contact with dozens of outposts and fleets. They are estimating 60% of their forward military capacity has been destroyed or captured." "After only 2 hours," Brandon said quietly, "we are moving faster than projected." "There is more," continued. "The Dominion Supreme Leader has ordered all remaining forces to fall back to their fortress world. They are abandoning their conquered territories to consolidate what they have left. Brandon considered that information. It made tactical sense from the Dominion perspective. They could not defend their entire empire against 3 simultaneous human task forces. Better to withdraw to a strong defensive position and try to negotiate, but that would not save them. The humans had no intention of negotiating. This war would end only one way. "Send that intelligence to the Admiral immediately," Brandon ordered. "He needs to adjust our strategy accordingly." "Already done, Captain," replied. Brandon's communication panel lit up. Danny Shaw's voice came through. "Depot secured, Captain. All sections under human control. We have 3,000 Dominion prisoners. Casualties on our side are 0. Casualties on their side are 37 killed, 512 wounded, the rest surrendered intact." "Outstanding work, Lieutenant," Brandon said. "Begin processing prisoners. Medical teams will arrive shortly to treat the wounded." "Understood, Shaw." Brandon stood and stretched. His ship had been in combat operations for over 2 hours now, with another 3 to go. But his crew showed no signs of fatigue. They were trained for extended operations. More importantly, they believed in what they were doing. They were liberating oppressed worlds and ending a war that had killed billions. That kind of moral clarity made people fight harder. "Captain, new orders from the Admiral," the communications officer announced. "We are to proceed to the system. Dominion Military Command Center located there. Task Force Alpha will assault it simultaneously with Task Force Bravo's attack on the Grendel System Command Center." "Helm set course," Brandon ordered. "Best speed." The Thunderstrike turned and accelerated. Behind it, the captured supply depot was already swarming with human technical teams. They would inventory everything, treat the wounded, and process the prisoners. Within hours, that depot would be supporting humanitarian operations instead of Dominion military actions. Brandon looked at the mission clock on his display. 2 hours and 47 minutes had elapsed since humanity entered the war. They had destroyed or captured hundreds of enemy ships, secured critical infrastructure, liberated at least one slave world, and were now preparing to strike at enemy command centers. The Dominion had ruled through fear and violence for decades. They had believed themselves unstoppable. They had crushed anyone who opposed them. But they had never encountered a species like humanity before. They had never fought against an enemy who combined overwhelming technological superiority with tactical brilliance and moral purpose. The Dominion was learning a hard lesson. They were learning that conquest and cruelty eventually meet justice. They were learning that some species should never be underestimated. They were learning that the quiet humans who watched from council chambers for 50 years had been preparing for this exact moment. And they were learning that when humans finally decided to fight, they did not fight to wound or warn. They fought to win, completely and decisively. Brandon's ship jumped to slip space, heading for the next target. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They knew what was coming. 3 more hours of combat operations. 3 more hours of dismantling the Dominion's military power. 3 more hours until the galaxy changed forever. Admiral Wright stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display before him. 3 task forces were converging on a single point in space. The Dominion of waited at that point, along with everything the Dominion had left. This would be the final battle. Everything humanity had worked toward for 50 years came down to the next hour. "All task forces report ready," his operations officer announced. "Task Force Alpha under Captain Cole's command, Task Force Bravo under Captain Foster's command, Task Force Charlie ready under our direct control. Total strength 300 vessels." Nodded, 300 human warships represented less than 10% of humanity's total military strength. They had built for 50 years in secret, preparing for the day when they would reveal themselves. But 300 ships would be enough. They had to be. The galaxy was watching. "Communications, open a channel to all ships," ordered. The officer took a breath before speaking. His words would be recorded and studied for generations. They needed to be right. "This is Admiral Wright to all human forces. In 1 minute we will drop out of slip space at the Dominion. We will face their entire remaining fleet. Intelligence estimates over 500 capital ships waiting for us. They know we are coming. They have had time to prepare defenses. They will throw everything they have at us." He paused, letting that information settle. 300 ships against 500. Under normal circumstances, those odds would be challenging. But these were not normal circumstances. "We are not here to wound them or warn them," continued. "We are here to end this war completely. The Dominion has killed billions. They have enslaved entire species. They have spread suffering across this galaxy for decades. Today, we stop them. Today, we show them what happens when humanity decides that enough is enough." He looked around his bridge. Every crew member was focused and ready. They had trained for this moment. They believed in their mission. "Remember why we fight," said. "We fight for the species the Dominion destroyed. We fight for the slaves they took. We fight for the children who died in their attacks. And we fight to prove that justice still exists in this galaxy. All ships prepare for transition." The channel closed, sat in his command chair and gripped the armrests. Around him, his flagship prepared for combat. Weapon systems powered up. Shields reached full strength. Point defense systems armed themselves. 300 ships were doing the same thing simultaneously. "Transition in 10 seconds, the navigation officer announced. "Watch the countdown." When it reached 0, space twisted around his ship. The flagship dropped out of slip space along with 300 other vessels. They emerged in perfect formation, arranged in a sphere that could defend itself from any angle. The Dominion fleet was waiting. Its tactical display lit up with red icons. The enemy had positioned themselves between the human fleet and their 537 capital ships, arranged in multiple defensive layers. Thousands of smaller escort vessels surrounded them. And behind them all, the planet hung in space like a jewel, its cities glowing with light. "Getting a transmission from the planet's surface," the communications officer reported. "Audio and video, it is Dominion Supreme Leader Hun." "Put it through," ordered. The main flickered and changed. A being appeared, seated on an elaborate throne. Hun was massive, nearly 10 feet tall even sitting down. His scales were dark red, almost black. His eyes burned with intelligence and rage. He was the architect of the Dominion's expansion. He had ordered the deaths of billions, and now he was trapped. "Admiral Wright," Hun said. His voice was deep and controlled. "You have made an impressive entrance into this war. You have destroyed our forward fleets. You have captured our supply lines. You have freed some of our conquered territories. I acknowledge your military capability." Said nothing. He waited for Hun to continue. "But this ends now," the Dominion leader said. "You face the entire strength of the Dominion military, every ship we have left, every warrior we can field. You are outnumbered significantly, and you are far from your I offer you terms of surrender." Allowed himself a small smile. "You want us to surrender after we have crushed everything you sent against us?" "You have won battles, Admiral, but this is war. I offer you the following terms: withdraw your forces from Dominion space, accept client status under our rule, provide us with your military technology. In return, humanity will be allowed to continue existing as a protected species. You will have internal autonomy and limited military forces. You will not be attacked." The bridge crew remained silent, but could feel their anger. Hun was offering humanity the same terms he had forced on other conquered species. He still believed the Dominion could dictate terms. He still believed he held power. Stood from his command chair. He walked closer to making sure Hun could see him clearly. "Let me explain something to you," said quietly. "For 50 years, humanity watched this war. We watched you destroy we watched you enslave we watched you burn worlds and kill billions. And we remembered every death, every atrocity, every crime." Hun's expression did not change. "Then you understand the consequences of opposing us." "We understand that you have to be stopped," replied. "We understand that species like yours cannot be negotiated with or contained. You have to be defeated completely. So here are my terms. You will surrender unconditionally. You will release every slave you hold. You will stand trial for your crimes, and you will never threaten another species again." For 3 seconds, Hun simply stared. Then he laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "You are outnumbered 2-1, Admiral. You cannot win this battle. Accept my terms or be destroyed." Turned away from the screen. "End transmission, all ships, weapons free. Engage the enemy." The channel cut. Hun's face disappeared from replaced by the tactical display. The Dominion fleet began moving forward, closing the distance. 500 ships against 300. By any normal calculation, this should be a hard-fought battle. But humanity did not fight normal battles. "Activate the network," ordered. His operations officer pressed a series of controls. Across the human fleet, something extraordinary happened. Every ship's computer system linked together, sharing data at speeds impossible for biological minds to process. Tactical information flowed instantly between vessels. Targeting solutions were calculated and distributed in microseconds. Every human ship became part of a single distributed intelligence. 300 ships became one mind with 300 bodies. The Dominion fleet opened fire first. Thousands of plasma weapons launched simultaneously. The attack was coordinated and massive, designed to overwhelm any defense through sheer volume. The human fleet responded as a single entity. Point defense systems across all 300 ships calculated the most efficient distribution of fire. Each weapon knew exactly which target to engage to minimize overlap and maximize coverage. The plasma rounds died in space, intercepted with perfect precision. And then the humans fired back. 300 rail cannons spoke as one. 300 slugs crossed space at relativistic speeds. But this time, the targeting was different. This time, the human network had calculated the perfect attack pattern. The slugs were not randomly distributed. They were aimed with mathematical precision to create cascading failures in the Dominion formation. The first wave of slugs struck enemy shields and armor. The second wave, arriving microseconds later, hit the same points where the first wave had weakened defenses. The third wave punched through completely. In 3 seconds, 50 Dominion capital ships were destroyed or crippled. The Dominion fleet tried to adjust. They attempted to scatter, breaking formation to make themselves harder targets. But the human network predicted their movements. It calculated vectors and trajectories faster than any individual could think. When Dominion ships moved left, human weapons were already firing at where they would be, not where they were. The battle should have lasted hours. It lasted 38 minutes. Watched from his command chair as the Dominion fleet was systematically dismantled. There was no anger in him, no satisfaction, only purpose. This was necessary work. These ships had been used to commit atrocities. They had to be removed from existence. Some Dominion vessels tried to flee. They were run down and disabled. Some tried to kamikaze into human ships. They were destroyed before they could close the distance. Some broadcast surrender signals. Those were disabled and left for recovery teams. By the end, 0 human ships were lost. Minimal damage across the fleet. The Dominion had thrown everything they had at humanity's military and achieved nothing. Dominion fleet neutralized, the operations officer reported. The planet is defenseless. Opened a new channel. Captain Laura, deploy special forces to the planet's surface. I want Hun and his entire leadership council captured alive. Non-lethal force only for civilians. Understood, Admiral, Laura replied. Her voice carried grim satisfaction. We have been waiting for this. Watched on secondary screens as human drop ships entered the atmosphere. They landed near the Dominion Capitol building. Marines in powered armor secured the perimeter. Laura led her team inside personally. The Dominion Palace guards tried to resist. They were put down with stunning efficiency. 22 minutes after landing, Laura transmitted success. Admiral, we have them. Hun and 15 members of his leadership council, all alive, all in custody. Bring them up, ordered. They will stand trial before the Galactic Council. He opened another channel, this time broadcasting on all frequencies across known space. Every council world would receive this message. Every news service, every ship in space. This is Admiral Wright of the Human Expeditionary Force. The Dominion War is over. The Dominion fleet has been defeated. The Dominion leadership is in custody. All Dominion forces are ordered to surrender immediately. Any ship or soldier who lays down their arms will be treated fairly. Any who continue to fight will be destroyed. He paused, letting that message spread across the galaxy. To the species of the Galactic Council, continued. Humanity has kept its word. The war is over in 5 hours, as promised. We will now begin humanitarian operations to aid freed worlds and process prisoners. We request Council assistance in establishing temporary governments. In former Captain Foster stood on the surface of Aura, watching his crew distribute medical supplies to freed slaves. The planet had been under Dominion control for 12 years. 3 million beings had been forced to work in mining operations, extracting rare minerals under brutal conditions. Now they were free, blinking in the sunlight like people waking from a nightmare. Around him, human Marines moved through the camp with calm efficiency. They had secured the Dominion garrison in under an hour. The enemy soldiers had surrendered almost immediately when they realized they were facing humans. Word of the 5-hour war had spread across every communication channel. Nobody wanted to fight the species that had destroyed the entire Dominion military in less time than it took to watch a movie. A young woman approached carefully. She was thin, her clothes ragged, but her eyes were alert. She spoke in halting English, words she must have learned from translation programs. "You are the humans," she said. It was not quite a question. "I am Captain Foster," replied gently. "And yes, we are human. What is your name?" "Christina," she said. "I am from the colony worlds. The Dominion took me when I was 16. That was 8 years ago." Felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his expression calm. "You are free now, Christina. We have medical teams to check your health. We have food and clean water, and we will help you contact your family." Christina looked around at the camp. Other freed slaves were gathering, watching the humans with expressions mixing hope and disbelief. "Why did you come for us?" she asked. It was a simple question, but knew it carried enormous weight. These people had been abandoned by the galaxy. The Council had been too weak to help them. They had suffered for years while the war dragged on, and suddenly humans appeared and freed them in hours. "Because it was right," said simply, "and because we could." Christina stared at him for a long moment. Then tears began running down her face. She covered her mouth with her hands, trying not to sob, reached out carefully and put a hand on her shoulder. Around them, other freed slaves were crying too. Some were hugging each other. Some were just sitting down, overwhelmed by the sudden change in their circumstances. His communication device buzzed. "Captain, this is Lieutenant aboard the Valkyrie. Admiral Wright is requesting all senior officers return for debriefing." "Acknowledged," replied. He looked at Christina. "I have to go, but my crew will stay here to help. You are safe now." Christina nodded, still crying, walked back toward his shuttle, leaving his crew to continue their work. As he lifted off, he looked down at Aura. Human ships were in orbit, providing security. More ships were arriving with supplies. This scene was being repeated across a dozen worlds. Everywhere the Dominion had held slaves, humans were arriving to set them free. The shuttle docked with the Valkyrie, made his way to the bridge where his crew was monitoring operations. On the main, he could see other human vessels moving into formation. They were preparing to return to Council space. 30 minutes later, ships slipped into the stream of vessels heading back. The 5th hour was nearly complete. The war was over. Now came the hard part, explaining to the galaxy what humanity had done and why. Commander Jack walked through the halls of the Council building. Next to him, Ambassador Lisa reviewed final notes on her tablet. They had spent the last 4 hours in a small conference room, watching battle reports come in. Now it was time to return to the Council chamber and face the questions that would certainly come. The doors opened. Jack and Lisa entered together. Every seat was filled. Every delegate was present. When the Council members saw the humans enter, the room fell silent. Jack could feel the weight of their stares. Some looked afraid, some looked awed, some looked angry. High Chancellor stood from his seat. "Ambassador, Commander, welcome back. I assume you have a report for us." Lisa walked to the center of the chamber floor. She did not bring any notes or displays. She simply stood there, calm and composed. "The Dominion War is over," she said. "As promised, it took 5 hours. The Dominion fleet has been destroyed or captured. The Dominion leadership is in custody, awaiting trial. Dominion military forces across known space are surrendering. Humanitarian operations are on all freed worlds." The chamber remained silent. Nobody seemed to know how to respond. "You destroyed them," the delegate said softly. "You destroyed the entire Dominion in 5 hours. We fought them for 47 years and barely survived. You needed 5 hours." "We did," Lisa confirmed. "How?" asked. The question carried no anger, only genuine confusion. "How is this possible? We have seen human ships before, merchant vessels, diplomatic shuttles. They seemed advanced but not revolutionary. Where did your military come from?" Lisa took a breath. "When humanity first made contact with the Galactic Council 50 years ago, we studied you carefully. We studied your technology, your culture, your history, and we studied your wars. We saw how you fought. We saw your weapons and tactics, and we realized something important." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "We realized that we were far ahead of you technologically. Our military science had developed along different paths than yours. While you focused on energy weapons and massive ships, we perfected kinetic weapons and networked systems. While you built for individual ship combat, we built for fleet-level coordination. While you relied on biological pilots, we integrated artificial intelligence into every system. The council members listened intently. Jack could see understanding beginning to dawn on some faces. But we also realized something else, Lisa continued. We realized that if we revealed our capabilities immediately, you would fear us. You would see us as conquerors or threats, so we made a choice. We would watch and wait. We would offer trade and friendship. We would build relationships, and we would prepare for the day when we might be needed. You hid your strength, said slowly, for 50 years. We did, Lisa confirmed. Our merchant ships were actually reconnaissance vessels, gathering intelligence on the Dominion. Our civilian researchers were weapons developers, improving our technology. Our diplomatic staff were military officers, learning your languages and customs. Everything we did for 50 years was preparation. A delegate, one of the few survivors of that species, spoke up. Her voice shook with emotion. But why? Why wait so long? My people were destroyed. Billions died. If you had intervened earlier, they would still be alive. Lisa turned to face the directly. I know, and I am sorry, but we needed absolute moral authority for what we were going to do. We needed the galaxy to see us as liberators, not as invaders. We needed you to ask us for help. And we needed the Dominion to prove they would never stop, never negotiate, never change. She gestured around the chamber. If we had intervened 10 years ago, some of you would have said we were warmongers. If we had attacked the Dominion without provocation, you would have feared us. If we had tried to seize power in the Council, you would have resisted us. We needed to wait until the moment was absolutely right. Jack watched the Council members process this information. Some nodded slowly, others looked troubled. All of them were reassessing everything they thought they knew about humanity. And now, asked, what does humanity want? You have proven your military supremacy. You could conquer the Council as easily as you conquered the Dominion. What are your intentions? Lisa smiled slightly. We want exactly what we have always wanted, to be part of the galactic community, to trade and share knowledge, to help other species grow and prosper. The only thing that has changed is that now you know what we are capable of when necessary. You want us to trust you, the delegate said, after you hid the truth from us for 50 years. We want you to understand us, Lisa corrected. Humanity believes in peace. We believe in cooperation. We believe in the dignity of all intelligent life. But we also believe that sometimes peace must be defended with force. The Dominion proved that. They would never have stopped conquering through negotiation or diplomacy. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. We are not conquerors, Lisa said firmly. We are protectors. We watched you fight bravely against overwhelming odds. We saw your courage and determination. You earned our respect. Now you have our protection. Any species that threatens the Council will face humanity's response. Not because we seek to dominate you, but because we believe you deserve to exist in peace. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. The Council will need time to process this information. We will need to discuss the implications of humanity's military capability. But I think I speak for many when I say that we are grateful. The Dominion killed billions and enslaved millions. They had to be stopped. We could not do it alone. You did it for us. He paused, then continued. I propose an immediate vote. Humanity has been an observer species for 50 years. I move that we grant them full Council membership with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Additionally, I propose we establish a new Council position, military protector of the galactic community. This position would give humanity authority to maintain peace and respond to existential threats. Several delegates began speaking at once. Jack could not follow all the conversations, but the general tone seemed positive. After several minutes of debate, called for a vote. The result was unanimous. 43 species voted to grant humanity full Council membership. 43 species voted to give humans special military authority. Lisa bowed slightly. Humanity accepts these responsibilities. We will not fail you. As Jack and Lisa left the Council chamber, Jack felt strange emotions stirring. They had done it. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy. They had shown their strength and their purpose. But more importantly, they had shown their character. They had fought with devastating efficiency, but also with restraint. They had defeated the Dominion but treated prisoners humanely. They had crushed their enemies but immediately began helping the victims. Outside the council building, they found Admiral Wright waiting. The admiral had arrived from the fleet to attend the council session. He looked tired but satisfied. "It is done," Lisa told him. "Full membership, military authority. The galaxy knows what we are now." Nodded, and what we are not. That is equally important. He was right, Jack thought. The galaxy now knew that humanity possessed overwhelming military power. But they also knew that humans chose to use that power only when absolutely necessary. They knew that humans could be patient for decades. They knew that humans would fight to protect others, not to conquer them. Somewhere on Aura, Captain Foster was still coordinating relief operations. Somewhere in space, human ships were escorting freed slaves back to there. Somewhere in the former Dominion territories, human administrators were establishing temporary governments and ensuring fair treatment of all beings. The 5-hour war was over, but humanity's real work was just beginning. They had proven they could win wars. Now they had to prove they could maintain peace. They had to show the galaxy that their military power was matched by their wisdom and compassion. Jack looked up at the stars visible through the council building's transparent ceiling. Out there, thousands of human ships were returning to their hidden bases. Most of humanity's military would remain secret, ready if needed but hopping never to be called again. The galaxy had seen a small fraction of what humanity could do. That would be enough. Christina stood on Aura's surface, watching human ships move across the sky. Around her, other freed slaves were boarding transport vessels that would take them home. Human medical teams had checked everyone. Human supply officers had provided clothes and food. Human counselors had offered support. A human marine approached her. It was a different one than she had spoken to earlier, a young woman with kind eyes. "Christina, we have located your family. They are alive on the... We can arrange transport for you tomorrow if you are ready." Christina felt tears starting again. Her family, alive. After 8 years of not knowing, she would see them again. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." The Marine smiled. "No thanks needed. Take care of yourself, okay? The galaxy is going to be different now. Better, we are going to make sure of it." Christina watched the Marine walk away. She thought about the question she had asked Captain Foster earlier. "Why did you come for us?" His answer had been simple, because it was right, and because we could. That was what made humanity different, Christina realized. They had the power to do terrible things. They could have conquered the galaxy as easily as they conquered the Dominion. But they chose not to. They chose to be protectors instead of conquerors. They chose to free slaves instead of taking new ones. They chose mercy over cruelty. The galaxy had been waiting for someone like that. Someone strong enough to stop the Dominion, but wise enough to stop themselves. Someone who understood that true power lay not in domination, but in restraint. Humanity had been watching for 50 years, learning and preparing. Now they had revealed themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same. Dominion territories. Closed the channel. Around him, his bridge crew began organizing recovery operations. There was still much work to do. Prisoners to process, wounded to treat, infrastructure to secure, but the fighting was over. High Chancellor's face appeared on the communication screen. The reptilian leader looked stunned. Behind him could see the council chamber. Every delegate was standing, staring at the screens showing battle footage. "Admiral Wright said slowly, 'You actually did it 5 hours.'" "We told you we would," replied simply. "What are you?" asked. The question was almost a whisper. "What kind of species can do this?" Consider the question carefully. "We are humanity, Chancellor. We are patient and peaceful by choice. But when we choose to fight, we fight to win." The Dominion had started this war 47 years ago. Humanity was going to finish it in 5 hours. And when it was over, every species in the galaxy would know exactly what humanity was capable of when they chose to unleash their full military might. The lesson would be clear and permanent. Humanity was not to be trifled with. They were patient and peaceful by choice, not by weakness. And when they finally decided that peace had failed, their capacity for war was beyond anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Be attempted. They were about to discover that the quiet species who sat in council chambers for 50 years had been hiding something the entire time. They had been hiding the most advanced and lethal military force the galaxy had ever seen. The moment had finally come. Jack's communication device vibrated again. This time, the message came from Admiral Wright, commander of the Human Expeditionary Force. All ships report ready. Beginning operations. See you in 5 hours. Jack smiled. He sent back a simple reply. Give them hell.